Sheeler Motor Mile, your premier used car dealer. Locally owned for over 50 years. ID1 exit 118C in Christiansburg. Call 866-SHEELER1. Always open at Sheeler.com.
The feel of the beach is perfect. Relaxing with family and friends. Bonding over memorable meals fresh from the seas. It's a beach experience, and it's in our backyard at 801 Raw Bar in downtown Lynchburg. They're family-owned and family-operated, bringing you that relaxing beach house vibe while you enjoy the freshest seafood from our region, including raw oysters, king crabs, and snow crab. Not really a seafood person? Try their fresh handcrafted burgers, subs, pizza, and salads. Step into the relaxing beach house vibe at 801 Raw Bar on Church Street in downtown Lynchburg.
You're stepping into the fast lane on the VTRN Sports app. 93.3 FM and 1320 AM Lynchburg, or by asking Alexa or Google Home, open VTRN Sports Lynchburg. Now, take the fast lane through the topics that matter across the Commonwealth. This is the Fast Lane with Ed Lane.
At least we're not going to get sued for paraphrasing off the friend of ours in the fast lane, former Raiders CEO, if I can speak clearly, Amy Trask. And do what? See, so often people want change. And like, we're about to talk NASCAR with Wyatt Watson at 5:30 today in the fast lane. And that's a sport where they put up plenty of blocks for change. Meanwhile, others want change just for the sake of change. And sometimes in NASCAR, they do want change, but they don't really know what they want to change to, which is why we go to the phrase, and do what? The same thing applies, though, at places in college football. And do what? For Virginia football, the jury's still out on Tony Elliott with the budget they now have committed. And do what? I think there would be plenty of options to take over if you got the healthy financial investment. We'll just call it that for the sake of time sensitivity today in the fast lane. Then at Virginia Tech, and do what if Brent Pry doesn't get it turned around? And Shane Beamer may not be the answer if he really doesn't want to leave the more financially endowed and place where he's created his own identity, SEC. Again, topic for a different time. Liberty, it's different. You got your coach. I know there's a faction of fans out there that would love Hugh Freeze to return to Liberty. By the way, look at him at the beginning of this season. Does he not look like a man who's already worn out? I mean, look, first of all, it's him. He took the money. God bless him. He took the opportunity. He wanted to get back to the SEC. Might have been the SEC of what he grew up with and what I grew up with, not the SEC that you would normally find. So you've got that particular element as well when it comes to all of these particular components. So I look at this right now and say,
it's not replacing Jamie Chadwell. That's absurd. I understand fans hit up message boards, particularly a Sea of Red and their Twitter account during games, and probably at Bryson Gordon as well from newsadvance.com. Not as much us in the fast lane, probably because, I don't have time for that nonsense. You know that phrase, brother. I ain't got time for that.
Yeah, I was like, don't mess with me because you might get your feelings broken.
Ty Tracy 90 is going to be as harsh as Fast Lane Ed Lane on Twitter or Instagram if you try to message us with the absurdities of like, let's replace Jamie Chadwell. We all know what happened last year. And I don't think this is a control the narrative thing about Jamie Chadwell as much as it is just realizing where things are with the Liberty Flames. But, and do what? Wanting a change from last year is one thing, but having a plan for how to go about it is the real key to success. You've been on teams for multiple years. Heritage Pioneers, I'll just be diplomatic and say the very demanding Brad Bradley. Is that reasonable, Ty?
I would say demanding, but I would say
intense.
Yeah.
I think he'd wear both with a badge of honor.
Yeah.
Either one works, and there's probably some overlap to what that means. I don't know about your experience as much at Virginia Union, but again, from year to year, when you have a disappointing season, it's one thing to talk about that, but you would probably know this better than I would, but just from the outside as an observer, I look at it more from a business leadership. Something needs to change, but you got to have a plan to where you're going to change. I would imagine for you in the locker room, it's the same thing. You can want to change from a disappointing season, but again, and do what? What are we going to do better to make sure that last year's mistakes don't crop up again?
Yeah, it's just like what you have to work on and what you think you need to improve on. Now, you're getting the same results every season. Like, we're not having a good season. You could tell what's going to happen because the coaching changes start getting more intense. The coaches start getting having more fire every time in practice. So you see another coaching change. Okay, things about to go downhill. We don't know when, but it's coming soon. Hopefully, it's Not now, but it's coming soon. But it's gonna come like it's gonna creep behind us if we not gonna know when.
I'm sure having been at Heritage High School, you've seen that where if things aren't going well, you can see the blood boiling over with the coaching staff in advance. And for those that are not familiar with it, it's like the shock to the system is about to hit you, correct?
Yeah, definitely. And you don't know what's going to happen.
And by the way, not to say that these things didn't happen with you when you were at Virginia Union, proud Virginia Union alum. We might include that, Ty.
Mhm.
But most of our audience relates more to Heritage because we're based in the Lynchburg area than
Yeah.
Virginia Union. But
Yeah.
it's a common thread in teams. And do what? As our friend Amy Trask, former Raiders CEO, said, and she gave us permission at Fastlane Ed Lane on Twitter to use that. So we're running with this. But and do what? If you're upset at the way last year went for the Liberty Flames, for fans, it's just you can vent all you want. I get it. I saw it too. But if you're a player, or frankly, you just are somebody who's invested in seeing them perform better, again, we more call it the way we see it. We're not Liberty alumni or fans. You might be, but I am a fan of all sports. Is the way to describe it. And yes, when Liberty does well, or if they're a train wreck, it's better for us than if it's just mediocre. Although last year, we should all be so blessed in college sports to have our teams be 8-4 and be deemed a disastrous season. But I think for Liberty, relative to expectations, it's not unfair to say maybe not disastrous, but clearly disappointing with the talent they had coming back and the lack of results that came from it.
Yeah, I mean, plus you knew when was game 5 or 6, that's when everything started going downhill. You knew okay, something's about to happen in the locker room. You don't know when, but a lot of stuff about to pop out. So that's nothing we just knew from a distance, but we didn't know when it was going to happen.
I would even go earlier. I think the second game of the year at New Mexico State, when you started having multiple unsportsmanlike conduct penalties and the dead ball personal fouls, that's the one where, again, you can revert to your Virginia Union Heritage days as a player. Coaches are frustrated with penalties in the action, especially when they're ones that you can train your way and work through. But the dead ball penalties are the ones where you're just you can get to a boiling point pretty quickly as a fan. And I would imagine as a player, leader, and a coach, you get to that point. And Liberty had those early in the year, and it became obvious that it was kind of an omen of where things were and where they were probably going to end up.
And plus, were they top in the country of penalties as well, if I'm not mistaken?
They were near the top. At the beginning of the year, they certainly were. I'm not a stat nerd to know where they finished the year, the Liberty Flames.
Was it it was close though?
They were in the top quadrant of teams and penalties last year at the beginning of the year. And as that season started to unfold, I get it. Other teams may quit to a different degree. Liberty, at least, they somehow hung in there and managed to win games and finish 8-3 in the regular season, even though a lot of players opted out for the bowl game down in the Bahamas. But the tone is different. And this is where Jacob Jenkins mentioned. It does start with, kind of like we mentioned yesterday, acknowledging your mistakes. If you have a problem, you got to admit you have a problem, or else the whole I am perfect, I have no problem syndrome that, is ridiculous. You're not going to get anywhere with it. And Jacob Jenkins said this today that kind of reiterates what many fans have thought, what we've known, but I think it is part of turning the page for the Liberty Flames.
Guys are just excited to play ball. And I think that's something that we lacked last year. And it's a healthy competitive, we all compete, but it's not like we're enemies. We're all pushing to the same goal. And so the offense knows we got to perform to our best, so our defense is getting the best look and vice versa. And I think that we're all on the same page, and I think the coaching staff has done a great job of, here are our goals, and this is how we're going to meet them, and that's the expectation. I think we're all head down trying to figure out how to meet those expectations, and it brings a lot of excitement and competition, which is great.
Guys are excited to play ball. That's the one phrase that jumped out from tight end Jacob Jenkins. And the other one is, here's how we're going to, go follow through on that, basically. But those are the phrases where, as an outside observer, I'm going, all right, it's not just talk about how last year sucked and was disappointing. There's an actionable plan in place. And that goes to something that actually Jamie Chadwell said yesterday, but it's relying on players to be leaders. Again, we'll revert back to you, Ty. Heritage High School, strong-willed personality, and Coach Brad Bradley. Virginia Union, I'd imagine, same thing, where you do need coaches, but you got to have players that are willing to step up and put themselves out there. And it seems like there's a core. I've always subscribed to this as well, at the Virginia Talk Radio Network. It's easier to lead when you're performing and consistently have a track record of performing than at that point, if you want to step up and get in people's faces or maybe give them a harder encouragement, push them a little further, you've got the leverage to do that because you backed it up with results and people will listen to you and take you seriously.
Yeah, definitely. That's why I feel like this year is definitely I would like to see Liberty overall step up, play better, and like be more consistent and be more leaders out there, like you said. But I like to see more consistent as well. Like for example, last year there was more like a first half, second half team. Then I know where they just play flat. You can't do that, and that's why I was like, I think that's like I love to see that. I think that's their goal. I like to see is be a full court, like a first court through a full court team instead of playing good first half. Then I don't care about the second half.
Or vice versa, where they start these games slow. East Carolina was one where they're down like 17-0 in the blink of an eye. And I get the inclement weather. If that was the only game and there was the weather involved, it's one thing. But when you have other games where you start slow and then you're climbing your way out of a mess, you can't continue to do that over time. And it goes to the player-led comments. Jamie Chadwell mentioned this when he met with the media to kick off the season yesterday, right before the first practice for the Flames, that yes, part of leadership and turning the page on last year is identifying players and relying on them to step up and be leaders because they want to avoid what happened last year, 8-4, but disappointing relative to the Flame standards.
Yeah, I think that's got to be a big part of it, right? You got to have guys that have been here 3 years with us. Now 3 years. You got to have guys that value what you're doing, value being here, and you got to rely on them to say, hey, this is the standard. We're not dropping below it. We're always going to raise it, and they got to be willing to speak up. And I think more than anything, that I've seen, we have guys that are willing to do that, but also have guys that are willing to listen. It's one thing to be able to do it, but if you don't listen to them, it doesn't matter. And so, but I do think the guys that have come in, I think the guys that were younger, they've been more willing to listen, more willing to be a part of, hey, this is how we're going to do things. And that's been I think the funnest part for coaches being around is we do have a group of young men that are excited about what we're doing, excited about the opportunity they have, and they're willing to jump in with both feet instead of, why are we doing this? And so I had a lot of whys this year, which has been nice as a coach.
And it's not the why are we doing this as in like my 7-year-old's asking why and needing an explanation and wanting to be educated on like why you're calling a particular play so they know it. It's more the why of questioning, like, why are we doing this? Because it requires more effort, which there types of whys that coaches, I think, are fine with. Ty, I've played different sports than you, running and doing tennis. They're fine if you ask why because you want to know the strategy and be better. But when it's a why because why do I really have to do this? Why do I have to put the effort in? That's when coaches get frustrated very quickly.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I wasn't okay. Coach Jones, I was a wild person, but I was like, okay, this is something new. We just can't say it. We want to see how this thing go and everything. That's why I want a wild person, but it was like, I don't know, but I'm not gonna say anything. But I want to see how everything tests out first before I ask.
Because, part of it's that, and again, part of it is, and I think coaches can figure it out, if you generally put forth effort and then you're asking why and you continue to put forth effort, they'll understand, even if you don't say, I want to know why to be a better player or why so that I can know the situation, versus if you're a slacker all the time and then you're asking why, they're going to immediately not give you the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I see that plenty of times before. I mean, things happen like that.
And a lot of that, it's identifying players, but you do have to have talented players. Like that is still one of those for the Liberty Flames. You need quarterbacks. The jury is still out on that position. We're not going to get into that today at Liberty. The jury's still out at Tech and UVA, where both of them have over 30 new players from the transfer portal on their rosters, which is how things are going to go at a lot of, even the best programs are going to have roster turnover year in and year out because you're just going to have more players at least. I don't like all of it. We go on that tirade at another time. You and me, Ty, we both have opinions on it, but it's part of it. So you're trying to bring players in, and I think as coaching staff and players, it is okay to know why it may not have worked out somewhere else. Was it injuries? Was it they recruited a ton of talented players and you just couldn't crack it, but you could fit somewhere else and you have the right attitude? Like, there are whys that go into that, and how hard you work in practice and things that differentiate. It might funnel you in to a good situation at Liberty, and that's part of the challenge of identifying guys. Look at the wide receivers in particular. They've had a number of power program transfers. They've even had some on the O-lines and D-lines. Not the biggest and largest individuals, but enough where there's potential, which is why if you're turning it around to Liberty, I think there are two things that also jump out about this Flames team and any program at this time of year, but Liberty's in our backyard. Tech is just going to be meeting with the media 5:45 today, so we won't have much reaction to that. And Virginia with Tony Elliott, like the Hokies, the Who's are in a prove-it year. But for Liberty, I thought the most revealing thing maybe was what Willie Korn, the offensive coordinator, said today, and what the word of the year is for the Flames. And again, sheds light on last year, but it also answers, and do what? How are you setting the tone early in camp to avoid that?
The word of the year
for this team that Coach Jowell selected was earned, and we're really trying to drive that point home with the guys in terms of earning your spot and earning your role. And so the depth chart is going to be very fluid and change from practice to practice, who's going with the ones, who's going with the twos, certainly with the quarterbacks, but at other position groups too. So I think there's a lot of excitement with that because maybe last year's team, you're a little bit more solidified. You kind of knew what some of the rooms are going to look like. Now you're kind of brand new. And so I think there's a lot of hope. And I think the biggest thing that you want to drive to your team is, that connection and commitment to each other that we have right now that can't fall by the wayside when you don't get the position that you want.
And that is the next question. All this positive mojo for Liberty, all of everything else is exciting now. But at some point, depth charts will start to be revealed. Players will see this. You can't fool them when, again, as camps go on, Ty, you've been there before, you start to see some players getting more reps and others getting fewer. And in essence, it's speaking to the depth chart. And you have guys that can buy into that and, frankly, stay mentally engaged and prepared, because we'll get into this with quarterbacks later. But outside of the quarterback position, there are probably going to be opportunities, even if you may not be a starter or a guy that's listed with big minutes. Injuries are just going to happen. At quarterback, if you get injured, it goes to one other player usually. But at other positions, there's going to be an amount of depth where you want 6 to 7 pass catchers at wide receiver, if not 8 to 9. You want at running back 3 to 4 guys in a minimum spot, because Liberty uses 2 of those. Tight ends, you're looking at 3. D-line, Liberty's talked about having a plethora of options there. The best teams. We saw it with the Eagles last year in the Super Bowl, but we see it in other levels as well, having waves of pass rushers. Linebackers / jokers. They ask a lot out of them at Liberty. Again, you want depth. Cornerback, if you're going against teams that throw the ball a lot and those corners are running, you're going to need guys that can run down around the field and sprint often, so you're going to need bodies there. That, to me, is the next step. Is, it's not just earned, but it's what Kyle Krantz showed when he spoke with the media, the co-defensive coordinator for Liberty, but how you show love and how it starts in camp.
Yeah, and we have a bunch of guys that have a ton of talent. Now they got to work to make sure that they're learning the scheme and learning what to do and how to do it, and then doing it with the elite effort. And then, again, go back to that word, consistently. They have to do it all the time. It's not just a one-day thing. For the depth to be real, there's got to be no drop-off from 1 to 2 to 3 or however many we have. But, yes, we have a talented group at a bunch of different positions, and now we just got to put it all together. And Joe spoke to the connection part and do it for one another. I mean, that's Coach Jowell said it in the first meeting, right? Effort is how you show someone you love them. So we got to play hard for one another every day.
That's a great quote. Effort is how you show someone you love them. But it's true. I mean, you got to be willing to put that effort out in every single day. And look, it sounds very ordinary, but when you're talking about all these programs in college football, that the roster turnovers there, some of it is starting with the elementary, which is demanding the level of effort and intensity you expect. And even with rev share and guys getting paid, understanding that at some point, if you're not putting the effort in, you may have gotten the money already, but you're not really going to get the opportunities, and that financial well is going to dry up now and perhaps in the future as well.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that one. But like picking up what you said earlier, really, you put 12 games this season. It's a lot of football, and you got to think about the first 2 weeks of the season. You can see a lot. Sometimes, you see a lot of changes in the starting lineup, because you got to think about the first 2 seasons. Like, okay, because it's not like the NFL, they got preseason. You like, okay, I know who's gonna fit, but it's like the first 2 games of the season is like, okay, this ain't working. Let's change this. They still change the scheme, trying to know the schemes and everything. By like week 3 or 4, maybe 5-ish, that's when you figure out, okay, this is a scheme. This is a player who'll work on our scheme. This how it's going to work in the rotation and everything.
And you're going to find out some guys just are not schematic fits, so they're not going to get on the field. Some guys are fits that are good, but the effort's not great. And I think coaches are very reluctant to play that from the standard of principle, probably more at Liberty now, given how last year unfolded in a disappointing way. But there's some guys that may not just be quite there yet, quote unquote. And those are the guys that you want to see really keeping that intensity up. And that's where the tone needs to be set right now for Liberty. And again, goes back to what we've discussed, but and do what? You're talking about turning the page from last year and do what? You want that to start in camp with not just what you do in scrimmages, but what you do in everyday practice, the effort you put in extra conditioning. A lot of that was done in the offseason and is an omen, but how well you're prepared, the effort you put in studying, all the other things that can combine to make you someone that when your number's called, as cliche as when your number's called, you're ready to do something.
And I can say this, who knows the playbook better and who knows the calls, who knows what's going on, who's actually a student to the game as well.
Very good point. That's great, Ty. A student of the game. Were you always a student of the game?
Yeah, actually, I'll tell you one thing. If you give me a playbook, I'll probably know it. Give me like 24 hours, I'll know the whole thing.
You're a football nerd in a good
Yeah.
way. I mean, I am. I'm not to your level, but
Yeah, it's just, I just know what's going on. I just like, okay, this is happening. I just watch every position on the field because my D-line coach like, y'all need to learn every position on the field. I'm like, well, I'm not going to play DB in my life, but 7-on-7, you let me do it, I'll do it, but like not in real football because I'm not getting burned down. I'm not getting burned downfield.
did you say that out loud?
Yeah,
You're not-
I told him I'm not getting burned downfield. I think because I learned my lesson, play that safety back there is dangerous.
It is. If you're a defensive lineman, it's probably not the best move. Anyway, the best move for us is to talk a little NASCAR when we return. First, what he said and what he meant, then Wyatt Watson of frontstretch.com. That when we return, this is the Fast Lane on the VTR in Sports app and Ask That Smart Speaker, open VTR in Sports.
Get your best deal today on a quality pre-owned vehicle at any one of Magic City Auto Group's 4 locations. Shop us today in Roanoke, Lexington, Covington, and Bedford, and pick out your favorite from a great selection of over 230 cars, trucks, and SUVs, all priced to move out fast. Huge sales at Magic City has created a massive inventory of all makes and models, and now they've gotta go. Don't miss out on the pre-owned vehicle buy of the year. Shop Magic City Auto Group in Roanoke, Lexington, Covington, and Bedford. MagicCityAutoGroup.com.
This fall, Saturdays belong to the Hokies.
Oh, and these Hokie fans are going crazy here in College Town, USA.
Lane Stadium, electrifying, iconic, the best in college football.
Oh, you'd have to be here to believe it.
Built by tradition and fueled by passion.
Breaks free at the 10, to the 5, touchdown Tech.
Where every roar and every cheer brings you home. Are you ready to start jumping? Tickets on sale now. Visit Hokiesports.com.
Sandstone architecture, melodic music, wonders of the world. They're staples of Egyptian and Mediterranean culture. But you didn't have to travel thousands of miles to experience it. Just drive to downtown Cairo. Enjoy food from the entire Mediterranean, blended with the best Egyptian recipes. That means fresh ingredients cooked on a charcoal grill. Downtown Cairo staples include $5 heroes, and build your own Mediterranean bowl. Experience the taste of the Egyptian and Mediterranean world in your own backyard. Downtown Cairo, Business 29 in Madison Heights, and the Grays Mill Shopping Center in Forest.
As a mom, I want to enjoy my time with my family and not energy-draining, time-consuming projects. That's why I trust Executive Maintenance. When I need a handyman, I call Executive Maintenance. When I need lawn care and landscaping, I call Executive Maintenance. And when I have a big project like gutter cleaning and pressure washing, I call Executive Maintenance. Guard your family time. Trust Executive Maintenance for all your house jobs. Visit executivemaintenancelynchburg.com and call them today so you can spend time enjoying your family as I do.
Rain takes a toll on your house, including your chimney. Even when it's not raining, prolonged humidity impacts your chimney. Don't wait for the problem to enter your house. Call Black Goose Chimney Service. Featuring decades worth of experience, Black Goose Chimney Service will assess what your chimney needs and give you honest answers. Because the longer you wait, the worse it gets. Get ahead of the problem. Call Black Goose Chimney Service and visit blackgoose.net.
Head to lynchburg-hillcats.com to lock in your tickets for the Lynchburg Hillcats this season. Now here's VTR in Sports.
Step into the Fast Lane 24/7 at Trey Lyle VT and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Now, back to the Fast Lane.
Interpreting what's going on, frontstretch.com had a really insightful interview, probably the best one. They've had a lot of great content in their happy hour podcast, especially recently now that Trey Lyle is off of it. And for a while, they had great content on bringing the heat until Brian Nolan was substituted out for Trey Lyle. We say that tongue-in-cheek because Trey actually is doing a really good job and has ping-ponged from happy hour to bringing the heat to accommodate our schedule at the Virginia Talk Radio Network. But they had a great conversation with Mark Martin. Fascinating. Highly recommend it. I know theathletic.com, they've done a number of different articles as they've got reporters, including Jeff Glock, who wrote about it, being part of this NASCAR committee to examine the playoffs in NASCAR. Now, for the record, I like the idea of a chase format. Part of my issue is I'm about to do something that you're going to think like the apocalypse is coming here. I'm going to praise F1 for a moment. Now, like F1 capturing young people, they deserve credit. F1 creating some pizzazz and excitement, the vibes, if you will, have been great for a while. F1 in terms of entertainment of the actual racing, as you might hear, it's not been my cup of tea, just to keep it real. So I look at where we are in NASCAR as viewers and people just following what's going on and realize that, to me, the Latford point system that people love, particularly the old heads in NASCAR, it was too complicated. Like, to me, it was way too complex to figure out who got what from finishing first, second, third, and, it's a 3-point drop and a 1-point drop and then a 2-point. I mean, it just was too complicated. F1's actually makes sense. 35, 34, 33, 32, 31, all the way down. And then the 36 driver, the driver who wins the race, so finishes in first out of 36, gets 50 points. It's just that simple. Like, I may not like all of it, but I at least get that concept. But I also like the idea of the playoffs. Maybe not the idea of a one-race shot. To me, 3 is a good number. You go in best of 3s with each round of the NASCAR playoffs, which is great. But Mark Martin, speaking on his poll, and granted, these are diehard NASCAR fans, maybe not the casual ones who tune in but don't necessarily get embroiled in discussions on social media. But he's got a different take and a different opinion on it. So you combine that with something that came out a week or so ago, actually a couple days ago, and it brings us into this edition of what he said and what he meant.
The best place to find true insight is in a press conference.
He cares about the players. We've got a true veteran that's been in this game a long time. He really wanted this opportunity.
It's not a media scrum.
They found a way to persevere through it. They didn't get down. They didn't start pointing fingers. They all looked at themselves in the mirror and said, hey, we're going to figure out what it takes. The least important thing in a game is the score at halftime, right?
It's listening to the Fast Lane dissect what's really being said by your favorite players, coaches, and administrators.
In the 40-minute game, no one cares. You got to be able to execute on both ends of the floor. Man, they play hard for 40 minutes.
It's time for what he or she said and what he or she meant.
So NASCAR is exploring, is probably the best way to describe it. Exploring changes to their playoff format. And Mark Martin has come out and given his unofficial vote of, the desire for a lot of fans to go back to the prior ways of putting a format together. I'm not quite in that camp for the playoffs. I like the idea of some kind of a NASCAR playoff. It's not hard to satisfy me, though. Maybe I'm different, certainly from a lot of the core NASCAR fans, but I applaud them for being more willing to take chances. But the one race decider of a championship, you've got a 26 race regular season, and then 3 rounds of 3 races, and then 1 championship race for the 36 points paying races in NASCAR, 10 race playoffs total. I thought when you had the old playoff format, the first one where it was just a 10 race shot, things could get carried away really quickly. Maybe it's because Jimmy Johnson found a way to win that system with Chad and Allison. I mean, it speaks to how good they were. But you've got that element that goes into it. The other thing is 3 races to me is really good. I love that number. I love it in the sense of 3 races around. It keeps the energy level high. It creates a level of randomness, kind of like a best 2 out of 3 playoff series in sports. And over a period of time, you'll get deserving enough winners, including for the championship round. The best 1 race winner to decide it all, I can get behind the fact that needs to be tweaked. I can even go for the idea that you have a 10 race playoff and 16 drivers are initially in, and after 5 races, you lop it off, and then you go with just 5 races to determine who's the champion. I don't like that as much as 3 rounds or 4 rounds with 3 races each, but I can at least get behind this. And I like the idea of 16 cars being eligible. Winning your in has meaning. You might get a driver that points their way in, you might not, but it does place an added level of emphasis on winning to secure that berth in the playoffs. And we have yet, Mike Neff of FrenchStretch.com wants this, but we have yet to get to the point where we have more winners, 17 or more, than spots in the playoffs, 16. Could happen this year. I'd say it's unlikely. I would bet the odds that, you would have to give me, good plus money odds that we have 17 plus winners this year in the regular season, but I'm not ruling it out. But the ultimate what he said and what he meant is NBC Sports Vice President of NASCAR, Jeff Benke, on whether NBC has a particular preference on the NASCAR playoff format and how involved it's been in the study. This by Sports Business Journal's Adam Stern. Quote, we'll let NASCAR sort out their vision and we will produce those playoff races to the best of our ability. End quote. Here's the thing. The TV networks also said these type of things about the idea of college football realignment, that they don't influence what conferences do. They may not influence it, but they definitely will answer questions that executives might have about what can make us more money. So NBC may not be telling NASCAR this is what we want, but they will be telling them essentially this is what we would give you more money if it's this type of format or not. And there's a sector of NASCAR fans that detest that concept. Look, when you take the money, you take the fact that they're going to also want to exert lots of power because, as we know,
dollar bills, y'all,
go hand in hand with
lots of power,
as Kenny Powers and Melissa McCarthy, respectively, would remind us. Now, somebody who might have his own opinion on this, Wyatt Watson of frontstretch.com. He's been boots on the ground for NASCAR racing at the Brickyard at Iowa. He's been at different tracks before, and he'll be at Iowa this coming weekend and joins us now in the fast lane. Wyatt, great to be speaking with you. We love your shout outs for Ty Gibbs on the Through the Gears betting podcast. More on that in just a moment. But where do you stand right now on the commission that's been out and different people on NASCAR's supposed board of considerers in terms of how the NASCAR playoff format might get tweaked, but now it appears it's not going to be for the 2026 season?
I mean, having just two meetings, and it's good to be back on the fast lane, of course, live on our StreamYard session right now. But yeah, I mean, just the two meetings between the playoff committee, and I was kind of thinking it's ironic because I was going into Iowa thinking what's been going on with the playoffs before anything with Daniel Trotta and Larry McReynolds went down the way it did with Mark Martin and everything blowing up to where we're getting all this new information about where NASCAR, the TV rights with NBC and everyone is standing on the playoff format. But I think it's just a lost opportunity because NASCAR made the fans feel like that they were going to take a look and get this changed for 2026. And because the fans, obviously after Logano's victory and championship, wanted something, and NASCAR kind of gave a half-made promise to change this playoff system during the season and get inputs from former drivers, current drivers. But in the end, it is the TV, it's the guys at TV that really get the say in this. So it's a missed opportunity for NASCAR to make a necessary change, I think, to this playoff system, because I fall within the confines of the majority with Mark Martin and what he says. Everyone's looking for a better format, closer to even the chase, or in my opinion, I think they should go back to a regular season format because that's just the purest way to crown a champion.
So I can get behind, in theory, the regular season. I like the playoffs. I think the executives wanted. There's two sides to that, one of which is what we did and what he said and what he meant, which is the fact that NBC says that they are not determining the NASCAR playoffs. Is this kind of like college conferences where the TV executives say they're not impacting realignment, but they are basically saying, hey, we will give you more money for this scenario versus that, and you can make the decision. So effectively, we're flexing in some form or fashion.
Hey, dollar signs talk at the end of the day, and I do agree with that. I mean, you look at college football and the new playoff system they have is being spearheaded by ESPN and everyone on that side of the television rights that are just shelling out money to see this. And it is entertaining on that side. The same goes for NBC. They've been televising the playoffs since 2015. When did the playoffs start? They started in 2014, the year ESPN exited NASCAR. So this has been and to NBC's credit, I mean, Trey Lyle, of course, talked to Lee Diffie on Bringing the Heat with Trey Lyle, and it's spelled out. I mean, they do promote and they promote the hell out of the playoff system and the format and the drama that comes with it, as they should, and they do a spectacular job in about every other aspect of the coverage of each race that they put on, starting this weekend at Iowa all the way through to the championship. Thank God it's the last season that we have Phoenix on there, because if you have Lee Diffie calling a Homestead Miami championship, I think that's where kind of this argument could possibly die next year. If we have because I feel like with this car, we're going to have a great race at Homestead Miami in 2026 for the championship, and we can start rotating the tracks that can fit this car and have an entertaining finish and have more, I'd say even a more worthy champion in terms of skill on the 1.5 mile tracks.
Wyatt W Racing on Twitter to keep up with Wyatt Watson of frontstretch.com, who's joining us here in the fast lane. Wyatt, you mentioned finding ways to determine a champion. My preference would be, 4 rounds with 3 races each. I like that idea. I can get behind, 10 races, total 5 cut off after, cut off half of them after the 5. But if you're going to stick with a playoff format, we'll get to the old system in a moment. But if you're going to stick with the playoff format, Wyatt, is it worth a spot where you still emphasize wins? And is the cleanest way to do that by guaranteeing people a win in your in scenario, even if you get the outlier who gets eliminated in the opening round, like Harrison Burton last year?
I am not a proponent of the win in your in format of awarding somebody like, unfortunately, an SVG who's great on the road courses, but he's mired back in 27th in points for a reason, because he hasn't performed on the ovals, like a Harrison Burton who squeaked out a win. Even a Josh Berry in 21st who has struggled in a couple races, but he's had good pace in select races this year. I'm not really a fan of that happening, because now you had Chris Buescher and Ross Chastain last season who missed out on the playoffs and still had great end of season results, getting wins for their respective teams in the last 10 races. And they just missed out after having very consistent runs. I like consistency, but I do agree with what you said with the 5-5 style of playoff. I could see, even if it's 16, I think 16 is too much in my opinion as well. I think 12 is the magic number. But if we had to have 16, 8-8 in the 5 races for the last 10 races in 2 rounds, I think that's a good enough system, because you at least have a pool of 5 races to pull from, and it's still you have to make your moment, and the playoff points do the job for you too. You get rewarded with that going into the playoffs with that consistent runs, with consistent runs, consistent winning, and you get rewarded for that, and stage points, of course. So that's the system I would support there, Ed.
Wyatt W Racing on Twitter, frontstretch.com, and he is the host of Through the Gears, the NASCAR betting podcast. You've been outspoken. You like the old NASCAR system. My one qualm about the old system, and I could get behind it, and I understand there's some glory days, look back on nostalgically idea of the season-long point system, but I can get behind the fact that it rewards what you do consistently over the course of the season. My one qualm is, can we please do better than the Latford system, where if I can't easily explain this to my mom, how the points are awarded out? Look, I criticize F1 as much as anybody for a lot of the fact that it's way more bark than it is bite. It's a lot more, flash than it is actually substance. And maybe some people like that. I actually want some substance in my sport. But when you're trying to explain the Latford point system, you've got to do better than that if you want to go back to that, in my opinion.
Look, this point system I think is great. You get stage points, and if you have a consistent race, you get a maximum of 21 points. If you have the fastest lap, of course, as well, you get stage points for those, and those just add on to those final 10 races, like we said, and the final and the playoffs, of course. This system, the point system itself right now is completely fine. And we've had this standardized point system, not without the stages and whatnot in 2011 and 2012, those eras. I mean, shoot, 2011, even with the chase format, you had a thriller of a finish between Tony Stewart and Carl Edwards using this similar style of points. So no, I wouldn't go back to the Latford system just because I think that one is way, way too taxing on the consistency side. Because if you have a flat tire, a blown engine, someone just takes you out, you have to miss a race because you have a baby like Denny Hamlin did at Mexico City. Well, you miss one race or get wrecked in one race, it's just over. So I think this point system works just fine. I mean, it's again, the stages are there to balance it out. If you have a great race overall throughout the course of the race and you get those points, and there's opportunities to gain each and every week. And just look at the regular season fights we've seen the last couple of seasons, especially with the Gen 7 car. I think it speaks for itself. The battle for the regular season championship, it's going to come down to the wire between 3, maybe even 4 drivers this season. I think this point system would work in a full season format.
Wyatt W Racing is where you can keep up with his work. Wyatt, you will be out in Iowa for frontstretch.com. Are you expecting this to be a return to where it's Kyle Larson, Ryan Blaney, and Denny Hamlin kind of repping Chevy, Ford, and Toyota respectively? Do you see room for maybe a dark horse, maybe not quite at the Bubba Wallace level, but even somebody that's not in that top echelon of drivers, as you will probably detail on Through the Gears, a NASCAR betting podcast for frontstretch.com, and you are welcome to say or omit our guy Ty Gibbs.
Oh man, well, I will say Ty Gibbs did win something, and I had you on my mind when he was shooting money at the crowd for his in-season challenge victory. So congratulations there to you, Ed. But I mean, this isn't the track for Ty Gibbs specifically for him to pull out a win, I think. But I'm not on Denny Hamlin to come back and. I mean, he is carrying the torch for Toyota, no doubt about it. I think this is more Christopher Bell is someone you got to look at for a short track race like here at Iowa. I'm pretty sure he's also got an Xfinity win at this track as well before they stopped coming here. I could be wrong on that, though. Don't take my word for that. But yes, no, I'm absolutely on the horse with Kyle Larson and Ryan Blaney. I detailed them on my podcast Through the Gears. I think they're 5-1 on the betting market, if y'all want to know that, and they're co-favorites with Christopher Bell for this race. So, I mean, Blaney won here last year. I think it's a no-brainer that people are going to be watching Ryan Blaney, but I think Kyle Larson just showed how quick he could be if things don't go wrong with him here. And he also had a great race at the Brickyard where he did win, just falling a little short to Bubba Wallace, who I had my eye on last week too, and I'm not surprised he had a great race and even won the Brickyard 400 last week. So now it'll be Kyle Larson and I'll be Ryan Blaney. I think they will fight it out for the win. There might be a William Byron that sneaks into the show as well, like he did at the end of last season, although this will be a earlier start time for this race, which needs to be calculated for, because it was really the changing night from day to night that helped William Byron catch up to the pace of Ryan Blaney. Kyle Larson, Ryan Blaney, guys to watch this Sunday.
We'll get more on Through the Gears when it drops in a couple of days from frontstretch.com. Wyatt Watson will be on the ground, boots on the ground at Iowa this weekend. Wyatt, thank you for your time and insight. Good to chat with you and have you back in the fast lane today.
Great to be back again, Ed. Caught me on the road too, so it's good a little break from the drive, getting up to Iowa. Can't wait to be up there. First NASCAR race in about a year and a half for me. Thanks again for having me on the fast lane.
Indeed, it's exciting for Wyatt Watson. We wish him safety in travels. And of course, if you're on the road and somebody's not being safe, you might need to call Trost Law 777-HURT and visit trostlaw.com. Happy birthday, by the way, to Mr. Randy Trost. Today is reportedly his birthday. So awesome news for him. Meanwhile, when we return in the fast lane, a couple nuggets on NASCAR, but a lot more as it relates to Tech and UVA. Some interesting moves for them, plus the Washington Commanders and the all-ACC preseason teams. Ty might have his own thoughts. I'll have some as well when we return in the fast lane on the VTR and Sports app. Ask that smart speaker, open VTR and Sports.
Savings are heating up, and so are the summer super deals at the used car superstore on the Sheeler Motor Mile. You don't need super strength to get approved for credit. Sheeler owns the finance company. Getting approved for credit is super easy on the Motor Mile with financing options for every budget. Sheeler makes car buying easy with the hottest brands all in one location. Cars, trucks, vans, SUVs. Many have miles in the teens, remaining factory warranties, and some are even local one-owner vehicles. Over 900 used vehicles in stock now and ready to move. More than any other dealer in the area, plus exceptional service, selection, and savings. Need some summer spending cash? Sheeler will buy your vehicle even if you don't buy from us. Plus super money for your trade. Volume selling means volume pricing, and we've got the volume with over 900 used vehicles in stock now. No games, no gimmicks, just summer super deals at the used car superstore on the Sheeler Motor Mile, your premier used car dealer, locally owned for over 50 years. I-81 exit 118C in Christiansburg. Call 866-SHEELER1. Always open at Sheeler.com.
Is it time for a new place to call home? Moving out on your own? Perhaps your existing lease is up for renewal. Looking for a new roommate? Or maybe you just need a change of scenery. Then you need to check out brownstoneproperties.com. We have Central Virginia's largest selection of apartments, townhomes, and single-family homes. Applying is easy with our online application. Visit us online to begin your search at brownstoneproperties.com.
Hot weather is right around the corner. Save money on those summer cooling bills by upgrading those old drafty windows. Discover energy efficient, easy cleaning tilt-in windows now with Collins Custom Builders. Our customers have relied on us for 35 years to provide the best in windows, siding, gutters, and more. Plan early and call today for your free estimate. Find us online at collinscustombuilders.com.
When it comes to legal matters, there is no substitute for experience. Hi, I'm Randy Trost with Trost Law. We've gained knowledge from serving Virginians for over 4 decades. Since 1982, we've handled auto accidents and personal injury cases ranging from simple fender benders to complex tractor-trailer cases. And we're ready to put our experience to work for you. We hope you never need our services, but if you do, just give us a call at 777-HURT or visit us at trostlaw.com.
Step into the Fast Lane 24/7 at Trey Lyle VT and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Now, back to the Fast Lane.
The moves have come in to the point, and it's not quite done for the MLB trade deadline. That wraps up at 6 p.m. today. More on that tomorrow in the Fast Lane, as well as the morning warm-up. Trey Lyle is probably going to have an even greater update from 7 to 8 a.m. right here on the VTRN Sports app, so stay tuned for that. In the meantime, some news that we haven't quite gotten to, but is still worthwhile, but I don't know if you call this breaking news. Preseason all ACC teams are not, to me, breaking news, alarm bell worthy. This is not, your cable news network / Embrace Debate show where they flash it up on the screen with big caps locks and sirens and it says breaking news. And then you look in and you're like, really? This is considered breaking news? But it's worth discussing in the Fast Five at 5-ish.
It's time for Fast Five at 5-ish. 5-ish minutes on 5 relevant topics done around 5 p.m.-ish. Ish, because our counting skills are kind of ish. Let's start with number 5.
So Cade Klubnik, Clemson quarterback, is preseason player of the year by far in the ACC. He got 146 votes, followed by Haynes King of Georgia Tech, Kevin Jennings of SMU, Carson Beck and Kyron Drones tied for 4th from Miami and Virginia Tech, respectively. I guess I could see a path for Kyron Drones of Virginia Tech. I'm doubtful on Carson Beck because I'm skeptical. I think Cam Ward did a phenomenal job elevating Miami, but I've still got questions about their culture, and Beck to me doesn't seem like the type of guy that's, how do I say this? Based on my loose knowledge, personality-wise, going to elevate culture. Meanwhile, I went with Cade Klubnik, the guy that I thought, and he didn't get any votes on this, but my other consideration was Peter Woods, the defensive tackle, who is described as, quote, 90% of Jalen Carter, end quote. If you're 90% of Jalen Carter in the ACC, that might be good enough to be player of the year. The media is narrow-minded enough where they will not vote for a defensive tackle as player of the year, even if he has a Jalen Carter-like impact. I love plenty of media in the ACC, but there are a lot of people that are just not that educated when it comes to that type of award. But to me, it would have been Klubnik of Clemson or defensive tackle Peter Woods, which speaks to why Clemson is as strong of a candidate as any, and the fact that Clemson, they are loaded up on the preseason All-ACC team, much like they are loaded up on those projected 2026 mock drafts with the number of these same figures. Virginia Tech and Virginia did not place on either of these teams outside of the Kyron Drones 4 votes with Carson Beck for ACC Player of the Year. I know fans may be upset in Charlottesville or Blacksburg, but you can't have it both ways, which brings us into
number 4.
You can't be upset that you're not represented on the preseason All-ACC team, but then on the flip side, say that you're in prove-it year 4s for Brent Pry at Virginia Tech, the head coach there, or Tony Elliott, the head man at Virginia. Like, it doesn't go both ways. We're in prove-it years, and we have lots of question marks, but how are we not represented on this team that distinguishes past accomplishments largely? Like, to me, that makes absolutely no sense, and it's kind of mind-blowing. Meanwhile, too,
number 3.
We did not get to this earlier, but it's worth discussing, and that being the hold-in that has gone from a holdout to a hold-in. Not Trey Hendrickson of the Cincinnati Bengals, but Terry McLaurin, the wide receiver for the Washington Commanders. We did get great insight Monday from Candy Waller, Bowie TV sports president, and Ty and Trey had it Tuesday in the morning warm-up with Lake Lewis. Terry McLaurin's at the team facility, but it sure is trending like McLaurin may be closer to the 30 million or less mark as opposed to the 30 million or more mark based on deals like the Broncos with wide receiver Courtland Sutton and even some of the others like Garrett Wilson, who is younger and have come in with the Jets. McLaurin may not want this. I do think a deal ultimately will get done sooner than later, but the reality of a hold-in versus a holdout is it basically minimizes accruing the $50,000 fine. If you're being a complete malcontent, I don't like it. If you're there actively participating in everything with the physical side of things, I think it's the right way to handle a hold-in if you are a player, although I understand the desire to, proverbially speaking, turn up the wick. Speaking of turning up the wick,
number 2.
At least 100 NFL players from roughly half of the NFL's teams faced fines and a possible suspension for allegedly selling their allotted Super Bowl tickets to Super Bowl 59, which is a violation of league policies. Let's keep it real here in the fast lane. This is not about the NFL losing real revenue or losing
dollar bills. Y'all.
It's the fact that the NFL will take every step to preserve having and the fact that the NFL, comparatively speaking, compared to other professional leagues, they have lots of power and they want to flex on that. This is a 100% control mechanism for the NFL because they certainly are not suffering financially. It is merely a standard of not allowing players to take tickets and sell them at face value as opposed to the NFL maybe just increasing the value of these tickets so they can get as much as possible. Does it sound trivial? It absolutely is. But remember, a lot of these type of things are about precedent more than anything else. Meanwhile,
number 1.
The Hokies spending a little bit more money apparently as they and ODU have altered their football series. 4 of the remaining 7 games will not be played between Virginia Tech and ODU. They'll stick in 2025. Obviously, it's too late to change the schedule later this year, as well as 2026 and in 2030. But they've canceled the games in 27, 28, 29, and 31. I like the idea of playing the Commonwealth schools intra-Commonwealth as often as possible. But I will say this. For Virginia Tech and Virginia, I would love to see some more, this is scheduling speaking, diversity in terms of opponents. Like for a while, Virginia Tech was in the same boat with East Carolina. Like Jim Weaver, the athletic director at Virginia Tech, his thing was East Carolina. Now it appears Whit Babcock's at Virginia Tech is ODU. Have some more creativity. And it can be Virginia area schools, JMU and Liberty. I understand those programs do better than ODU historically, but if you're Virginia Tech, you, emphasis on this word here, should be well equipped to beat those programs regularly. But if it's not those 1A schools, App State, Marshall, and others, and I get it, you would want them in Blacksburg. You would not want them on the road, even though you can get a more financially advantageous deal. We've seen Virginia Tech suffer multiple times losing at ODU, and we've seen these schools backing out of it, and I think that type of principle has gone a long way, but I'd like more scheduling flexibility with these type of setups. And yes, the scheduling beyond 2030 who knows how this stuff is going to look with the new landscape of college athletics. But Virginia Tech and ODU altering their football series, I'm fine with it because I've wanted something different. Also, by the way, worth adding into this, there is a guaranteed men's basketball game in Castle Coliseum. Again, similar principle. These schools and group of 5 schools are more at a disadvantage to even Power 4 schools, Virginia Tech and UVA, or Power 2 schools, Notre Dame plus the SEC and the Big Ten, which means theoretically, again, emphasis on that. But if you're Virginia Tech, you, again, emphasis on this word, should be equipped to handle those type of games, but you can still find a way to incorporate them into your schedule. I like that. And if you're Virginia Tech, I'd like more flexibility in that particular regard. Meanwhile, a couple of other nuggets that have come in here in the fast lane that are at least worth bringing up and addressing when it comes to precedent. One of them is this. Right at the beginning of the ACC kickoff, the University of Memphis, I'm familiar with them, went to school down in M-Town. Got to use the symbols, of course, for the visuals at Fastlane, Ed Lane on Facebook Live and YouTube. But Memphis reportedly offered $200 to $250 million to the Big 12, including with sponsorship assistance from a large auto parts distributor that might get you in the correct zone when you're driving your car. Read into that what you will. And a home improvement chain that likes to give you the lowest cost per item. It's amazing when you consider that. And FedEx was not even mentioned in it. They're the ones most synonymous with Memphis, although RIP to former FedEx CEO Fred Smith. It's a precedent setter for a couple of things. If you're going to join larger conferences bringing sponsorship, I think also the fact that the larger conferences are not trying to add merely, but to contract. And the only way they would add is if they get rated, which it appears it's more likely to be for a Super League. Again, it goes back to the theory of precedent more than anything else, and why we're going to see more moves like this in all sorts of areas when you're talking about precedent being something that's worth considering and worth bringing up, because it goes, again, to the biggest story that popped up, which was theathletic.com's Matt Baker was the one who brought this up, but everybody's gotten access to it now with different FOIA requests. But that FSU Clemson ACC settlement where the exit fee to get out of the ACC decreases until 2030, but there's also that wrinkle that if at least 6 members want to leave the same sport to be part of a single sport league, i.e. a super league, they could get out of the ACC and might be able to go into a different conference, which, what do you know? Tech, UVA, Miami, Carolina, Clemson, and Florida State get you to the magic number of 6, which is where things are going. Meanwhile, where we're going is away for now, but back tomorrow in the fast lane, 5 to 6 p.m., VTRN Sports app, and ask that smart speaker, open VTRN Sports. Thanks for listening to The Fast Lane on VTRN Sports, 93.3 FM, W227BG Timberlake, and 1320 AM, WVG.